Sometimes the person who loves you the most is the one who disappears from your life the quietest. And the hardest truth to accept is this: not everyone who walks away stops loving you. There are people who leave not because their feelings died, but because staying became too painful, too confusing, too impossible. And if you've ever stared at your phone wondering why someone who once cared so deeply suddenly became distant, this video is for you. Because love is not always loud. Sometimes love hides itself behind silence. Sometimes the deepest feelings are buried beneath pride, fear, timing, trauma, or emotional exhaustion. You see, most people think love automatically creates closeness. But real life is far more tragic than that. A person can think about you every night and still never text you. They can replay your memories in their head while pretending you no longer exist. They can love you deeply and still choose distance. Why? Because human emotions are not simple. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And sometimes, staying away from someone they love is easier than confronting the emotions your presence awakens inside them. Maybe they believe they'll hurt you. Maybe they think they're not enough. Maybe life pulled them into a battle they don't know how to explain. Or maybe they are trying to forget you because loving you became the one thing they could not control. This is the hidden psychology nobody talks about. The silent reasons people disappear while their heart still whispers your name in private. Tonight, we're going to uncover those reasons together, not through shallow relationship advice, but through human nature itself. And by the end of this video, you may finally understand the silence that once broke your heart. Part 1. Sometimes people stay away because they feel unworthy. The most dangerous insecurity is not believing you are hard to love. It is believing someone loves you more than you deserve. Before we continue into the first hidden reason, ask yourself something honestly. Have you ever pushed someone away, not because you didn't care, but because you cared too much? Because this is where many love stories silently collapse. Sometimes a person distances themselves from you because your love exposes the parts of themselves they secretly hate. You see, when someone has spent years feeling broken, abandoned, rejected, or emotionally neglected, genuine love feels unfamiliar, and what feels unfamiliar often feels unsafe. Imagine a person who grew up believing they were never enough, never smart enough, never successful enough, never emotionally stable enough. Then suddenly, they meet you, and for the first time someone sees beauty in them they cannot see in themselves. At first, it feels magical, but slowly, fear begins to grow. They start asking themselves questions they never say out loud. What if they realize who I really am? What if I disappoint them? What if they eventually leave like everyone else? So instead of waiting for abandonment, they create distance first, not because they want to lose you, but because they believe losing you is inevitable. This is why some people become cold after intimacy, why they disappear after moments of closeness, why they act distant right when things start becoming real. Love forces them to confront their self-worth, and many people would rather escape love than confront the wounds inside themselves. Carl Jung believed that until people face their unconscious fears, those fears control their lives. And one of the deepest unconscious fears is the fear of being fully seen, because being fully seen means risking rejection without masks. So the person who stays away may secretly replay your conversations every night. They may still visit your social media quietly. They may still compare everyone else to you, but internally they are fighting a war between desire and shame. And the tragic part, you may interpret their silence as indifference, while they experience it as self-protection. This is why emotional distance is not always the absence of love. Sometimes it is the presence of deep inner wounds, and the sad reality is, people who feel unworthy often sabotage the very love they prayed for. So before you assume someone stopped caring, Remember this, not everyone walks away because they stopped loving. Some walk away because they cannot believe they are lovable at all. Part 2. When love becomes too painful to carry. Sometimes people leave not because the connection is weak, but because the connection is so powerful that it begins to destroy their inner peace. There is a kind of love that does not feel light. It feels heavy, not toxic, not fake, just emotionally overwhelming. And most people never talk about this side of love because movies taught us that intense feelings are romantic. But in real life, intensity can terrify people because when someone truly touches your soul, they gain the power to affect your emotional world in ways nobody else can. Your mood starts depending on their presence. Their silence changes your entire day. One message from them can heal you or ruin you, and for emotionally exhausted people, that level of vulnerability feels dangerous. So what do? They distance themselves to regain control. You see, some people have spent their entire lives surviving emotionally alone. They built walls, they learned independence, they convinced themselves they needed nobody. Then love enters their life unexpectedly. And suddenly, their carefully controlled world begins collapsing. Now they care too much. Now they miss someone constantly. Now they fear losing someone. Now they are emotionally exposed. And exposure is terrifying for people who survived by emotional numbness. This is why someone who deeply loves you may suddenly become distant after becoming emotionally attached. Not because they stopped feeling, but because they started feeling too much. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "There is always some madness in love, and for some people that madness feels unbearable, especially when life circumstances make the relationship difficult. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe distance separates you. Maybe family pressure exists. Maybe they are fighting depression, financial struggles, trauma, or responsibilities they never told you about. So internally, they begin associating love with pain. Every conversation becomes bittersweet. Every memory becomes both comforting and heartbreaking. Being close to you reminds them of everything they cannot fully have. And eventually, some people choose distance because distance hurts less than emotional uncertainty. This is the part nobody understands. A person can cry over losing you, while still being the one who walked away. Because walking away was never about lack of love. It was about emotional survival. And if you have ever experienced this, you know how confusing it feels. You wonder, if they loved me, why leave? But human beings are not ruled only by love. They are ruled by fear, wounds, timing, guilt, trauma, and emotional capacity. Sometimes a heart can love deeply, while a mind says, "I cannot handle this anymore." And perhaps one of the cruelest truths about life is this: love alone does not always determine who stays. Sometimes emotional pain becomes stronger than emotional desire. So the next time you think someone's distance means you meant nothing, remember this. Some people leave because being near you awakens feelings they are too overwhelmed to carry. Part 3, they are trying to protect you from themselves. One of the saddest forms of love is loving someone deeply while believing your presence will eventually hurt them. There are people walking through this world carrying invisible chaos inside them. Unhealed trauma, anger they don't understand, emotional instability, addictions, self-destruction. A darkness they hide behind smiles and normal conversations. And sometimes, when these people truly love someone, they do something heartbreaking. They leave, not because they do not care, but because they care enough to fear becoming the reason you suffer. This is the kind of pain few people recognize, because from the outside, it looks cold, it looks selfish, it looks confusing. But internally, they are thinking, if I stay close to them, eventually I'll damage them. If they really knew how broken I am, they would suffer. I would rather lose them than watch myself destroy them. You see, many people carry shame so deep that love feels dangerous, especially those who grew up around chaos. If someone spent years surrounded by betrayal, manipulation, emotional neglect, or violence, they often begin to believe pain follows them everywhere. So when they finally meet someone genuine, they panic, because now there is something valuable to lose. And people who are used to destruction often fear becoming destruction itself. This is why some people disappear right when the relationship starts becoming serious, why they become emotionally unavailable after moments of intimacy, why they convince themselves you deserve better, not because they don't love you, but because they do. The philosopher Buddha once said, "Attachment is the root of suffering." And wounded people sometimes interpret love itself as future suffering. So instead of risking hurting you later, they create pain now. It's tragic because both people suffer silently. One person thinks, "They stopped caring about me," while the other secretly carries guilt every day, believing, "I left because I cared too much." And sometimes they never explain this to you, because how do you tell someone, "I disappeared because I'm afraid of myself"? Most people don't have language for that kind of emotional complexity. So they hide behind excuses. "I need space. I'm not ready. You deserve better. It's not the right time." And while those words sound empty on the surface, beneath them often exists a storm of self-hatred and fear. This is why emotionally wounded people can love deeply while still choosing isolation. They think distance protects the people they care about. But what they fail to realize is this: sometimes silence wounds people more than honesty ever could. And yet, if someone walked away because they believed they would hurt you, it reveals something painful and beautiful at the same time. Their love was real enough to fear becoming your pain. Part 4. Some people stay away because they know they will never forget you. The hardest person to walk away from is the person who still lives inside your mind long after they are gone. There are connections in life that do not end cleanly. No betrayal, no dramatic goodbye, no final closure, just two people who met at the wrong time and left permanent fingerprints on each other's soul. And sometimes, a person stays away from you because they already know one terrifying truth. If they come close again, they will never be able to let go. This kind of love is rare. It is not built only on attraction or comfort. It feels deeper than logic itself. You hear a song and think of them instantly. You visit a place and their memory appears beside you like a ghost. Years pass, and somehow your heart still reacts to their name. These connections change people forever, and for some individuals, the only way to survive emotionally is distance, because staying connected keeps reopening the wound. You see, human beings can become emotionally addicted to certain people, not because they are weak, but because some souls awaken parts of us nobody else can reach. That is why some people return to your memory during lonely nights even after months or years apart. Your presence became emotionally symbolic. You represented safety, hope, meaning a version of life they secretly wanted but could not fully hold on to. And when something carries that much emotional weight, forgetting becomes impossible. So instead of staying halfway attached, they disappear completely. Not because you meant little, but because you meant too much. Albert Camus once wrote, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." And sometimes walking away is a person's desperate attempt to regain emotional freedom from feelings they cannot control. Because loving someone you cannot fully have can slowly consume your inner world. It affects sleep, focus, peace, identity. So they tell themselves, if I keep talking to them, I'll never move on. If I see them again, all the feelings will return. If I stay connected, I'll remain emotionally trapped. And maybe the cruelest irony of all, the person avoiding you may still carry you in silence every single day. They may never say it, never message you, never return. But some people leave physically while emotionally remaining in the same place forever. And this is what so many hearts misunderstand. Distance is not always proof of absence. Sometimes distance is proof of depth, because shallow connections are easy to replace. But soul-level connections, those stay inside people for years. So if someone who loved you deeply disappeared without hatred, without betrayal, without explanation, there is a chance they left because forgetting you became impossible while staying close became unbearable. The silence that love sometimes creates. Not every person who leaves stops loving you, and not every silence means your value disappeared. Sometimes people walk away carrying emotions they do not know how to process. Sometimes fear becomes stronger than vulnerability. Sometimes wounds become louder than love. And sometimes two people care deeply for each other while life still pulls them apart. That is the tragedy of being human. We are emotional creatures trying to protect ourselves from pain, even when it costs us the very connection we wanted most. But here is what you must remember. Do not measure your worth by who stayed. Some people leave because they are lost within themselves, not because you lacked value. And if someone truly loved you, that love does not vanish overnight. Human hearts are not switches. Real feelings leave echoes. Maybe that person still thinks about you in quiet moments. Maybe your memory still visits them unexpectedly. Maybe they are fighting battles you were never allowed to see. You may never fully know, and perhaps maturity is accepting that not every love story ends with understanding. Some end with mystery. Some end with silence. Some end with two people carrying each other privately for the rest of their lives. But your task is not to chase unanswered questions forever. Your task is to continue becoming someone whose heart remains open despite disappointment. Because the deepest form of healing is not becoming cold after pain. It is remaining capable of love after experiencing loss. And maybe one day you will realize something beautiful. The people meant for your peace will never force you to decode their silence endlessly. Until then, protect your heart, honor your feelings, and never assume distance automatically means you are unloved. Sometimes, the deepest love hides behind the greatest silence.